Imagine this. A decorated U.S. Army Major General, a man who's risked his life for his country, pulled over and handcuffed like a common criminal. Why? Because of the color of his skin. Two local cops humiliated him on the roadside, mocking his rank, refusing to check his ID. But one phone call, just one call to the Pentagon, changed everything. Careers destroyed, justice served, and a shocking lesson about power, prejudice, and courage. Stay tuned. This is a story you won't believe actually happened. It was a calm, sunny Sunday afternoon in suburban Virginia, the kind of day where the streets seem quiet, and everything feels normal, the kind of day when you'd never expect your life to be turned upside down in an instant. Major General Christopher Daniels, a highly respected officer in the United States Army, was driving his black Cadillac Escalade to a local base for a ceremony honoring young recruits. He wasn't in uniform this time, just casual jeans and a polo shirt. But his presence in the community was supposed to be unremarkable, routine, harmless. But that routine drive was about to become anything but ordinary. Without warning, flashing blue lights appeared in his rearview mirror. Sirens blared. Two patrol cars were behind him. His first thought? Maybe he had missed a speed limit sign, or perhaps another driver had called in something minor. Either way, he pulled over immediately, knowing full well that in situations like this, compliance and calmness were the only ways to stay safe. As he stepped out of the car, he expected the usual formalities, a polite introduction, a request for ID, perhaps a traffic citation. But instead, the officers immediately drew their weapons and shouted orders. "Hands up! Step out of the vehicle! Face down!" Daniels froze, surprised by the aggression. His training kicked in, and he followed their instructions to the letter. His hands went into the air, then behind his back as they roughly cuffed him to the hood of his own vehicle. And then came the words that would make anyone's blood run cold. "You stole this car, didn't you?" The accusation wasn't just false, it was absurd. This man had dedicated decades of his life to protecting his country, climbing through the ranks to become a major general. And here he was, accused of theft, judged solely on the color of his skin and the luxury car he was driving. Daniel's mind raced. He tried to speak calmly, explaining who he was, presenting his ID, and even pointing out that the car was registered in his name. But the officers laughed, dismissing him entirely. It wasn't just a traffic stop anymore. It was a public display of humiliation, a moment of blatant racial profiling that could have turned violent at any second. Even as bystanders began to notice and record the incident on their phones, Daniels stayed calm. He knew that losing his temper or arguing could escalate the situation dangerously. In that moment, the general's discipline and experience, the very qualities that had earned him his rank, became his shield. As Major General Daniels remained handcuffed to the hood of his car, the tension on that quiet Virginia street grew thicker by the second. Despite his calm demeanor, the officer's behavior was unprofessional and aggressive. They refused to acknowledge his rank or his explanations. Every attempt Daniels made to clarify the situation seemed to fall on deaf ears. "Officer, there must be some mistake," Daniels said firmly but politely. "I am Major General Christopher Daniels of the United States Army. You can check my identification." The officers simply laughed. One even sneered, "Yeah, sure you are. And I'm the president." Their words were mocking, dismissive, designed to humiliate, not to resolve a situation. Daniels realized that his rank, his accomplishments, and his service meant nothing to these men at that moment. He was being judged solely by the color of his skin and the car he drove. Bystanders had begun to gather. Some were recording the incident on their phones, capturing the shocking scene. A decorated military general, restrained and publicly humiliated, while local officers refused to verify his credentials. The tension was electric. Any wrong move could have escalated into violence. Daniels knew this, and his training kept him composed. Finally, one officer ran the license plate. Within seconds, his expression changed. The car was indeed registered to Major General Daniels. It wasn't stolen. The officer's hesitation was palpable, a flicker of uncertainty replacing his earlier arrogance. But even with this confirmation, the officers did not immediately release him. Pride, bias, or both seemed to prevent them from admitting their mistake. At that moment, Daniels made a decision that would turn the entire incident around. He looked at the officers and spoke calmly, deliberately. "Officer, I need to make one phone call. To the Pentagon." The officers laughed at him again, clearly doubting the seriousness of his statement. "The Pentagon? Yeah, right," one said, shaking his head. But Daniels didn't waver. He knew the power of truth, authority, and protocol. He understood that his calm, measured approach could force accountability where arrogance and prejudice had failed. Finally, after a tense moment, the senior officer allowed Daniels to use the phone. That single act, one dignified phone call, would set in motion a chain of events that no one on that quiet street could have predicted. It was the turning point. From humiliation and danger, Daniels was about to take control, not with aggression, but with authority, strategy, and unwavering composure. The tension on the roadside had reached a breaking point. Major General Daniels, still handcuffed and standing beside his car, reached for his phone with the calm precision of someone who had faced high-pressure situations countless times in his military career. This wasn't just any call. It was a direct line to the Pentagon, reserved for senior officers in urgent situations. Daniels knew that one phone call could make the difference between humiliation and justice. "Please allow me to make a call to the Pentagon," he said firmly to the officers. The patrol officers, still skeptical and clearly underestimating him, exchanged smirks. "The Pentagon, really? Who do you think you are?" One laughed. But Daniels didn't flinch. His voice remained steady, controlled, authoritative. The voice of a man who had commanded troops in combat zones. A voice that demanded to be heard. Finally, after a tense pause, the senior officer reluctantly handed over the phone. Daniels dialed the number, and when it connected, his presence on the line was unmistakable. "This is Major General Christopher Daniels," he said clearly. "I've been unlawfully detained by local police officers in Fairfax County, Virginia. I request immediate verification of my identity and notification of my commanding officer." There was no room for argument. On the other end of the line, Pentagon officials immediately recognized the urgency of the situation. Within minutes, the call triggered a cascade of notifications. The military police, the provost marshal, and Daniels' commanding officers were all informed. Every detail, the location, the officers involved, and the circumstances was logged meticulously. While the local officers still stood on the sidewalk, trying to maintain their authority, the first black SUVs carrying uniformed military police and liaison officers arrived. Their presence was commanding and undeniable. They didn't ask for permission. They demanded compliance. The same officers who had been mocking Daniels now looked uncertain, caught off guard by the reality of the general's position and the influence of his call. "Major General Daniels, you are released immediately," one military officer declared, stepping forward. The local police had no choice. Their arrogance and bias had been exposed, and the Pentagon's involvement made any resistance futile. Apologies were muttered, but they were hollow. The power dynamic had shifted completely. What started as a humiliating roadside incident had now become a lesson in authority, discipline, and accountability. Daniels' calm, measured, and strategic response didn't just free him. It sent a powerful message that respect for truth and position cannot be ignored, no matter how much prejudice may cloud judgment. After the incident, Major General Christopher Daniels returned to his military duties, but the impact of that day stayed with him, and with the nation. What happened on that suburban street was more than a simple traffic stop gone wrong. It was a stark reminder that prejudice and racism can infiltrate even the most routine parts of life. Daniel's story became a symbol of how courage, discipline, and strategy can confront injustice without violence. Daniels never sought revenge. He didn't demand punishment out of anger. Instead, he chose accountability and education as his tools. Through his calm insistence and his single phone call to the Pentagon, he demonstrated that authority and professionalism could overcome ignorance and bias. His response showed the power of maintaining composure in the face of humiliation, a lesson far beyond military protocol. The ripple effects of that day were remarkable. Beyond the resignations of the officers involved, Daniels' actions inspired changes in police procedures. Many departments revisited their training on racial sensitivity, proper verification of identification, and interactions with high-ranking officials. His story encouraged communities to hold law enforcement accountable, demonstrating that systemic change is possible when courage meets strategy. But perhaps the most enduring part of Daniel's legacy is the personal lesson he shared with the public. He emphasized that respect must be mutual, it isn't automatically given, and it cannot be demanded through aggression or force. Respect is earned, recognized, and defended through actions that reflect integrity and truth. Daniel's ability to turn a moment of personal humiliation into a platform for justice highlighted that true strength lies not in physical dominance but in principled, confident action. Even after his retirement, Daniels became a mentor and advocate, using his experiences to educate others, both in the military and in civilian life, about leadership, resilience, and the importance of standing up for what is right, even when the odds seem stacked against you. His story serves as a beacon for anyone who faces discrimination or injustice. One phone call, one voice, or one decision made with clarity and courage can change outcomes dramatically. In the end, Major General Christopher Daniels's roadside encounter was not just about a racially motivated traffic stop. It became a testament to integrity, discipline, and accountability. It reminded the world that courage can take many forms, and that, sometimes, the greatest victories are not won on the battlefield, but in the everyday battles for justice and respect. If this story inspired you, shocked you, or made you think, don't forget to hit that like button to show your support, and make sure to subscribe. And turn on the notification bell so you never miss another unbelievable story that proves truth, courage, and justice always win in the end.